All right. Also, while we wait, I'm gonna pin some things to the top bars from the Concordium account. Just something nice to look at while we talk. But I'll say give it one more minute because just open the space. And if you're listening, I won't be letting anyone up today. This is gonna be a one-on-one between me and Boris. Um, so do drop the account, the Concordium account, a follow, and Boris too. Highly recommend it. Um, but yeah, Boris, should we get started? And I'm gonna tell you, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm not like a huge subject expert on this. So what what I'll do is I'll ask pretty open-ended questions. You probably listen to Joe Rogan. I think I kind of have his style where I'm not like, I don't know, I'm not the most well-educated guy on every subject, but I'm a good listener and I'm always happy to learn. So
Well, you have to stop me from time to time because sometimes I can get off on a tangent and then um, you need to bring me back.
yeah, I'll do that. I mean, we talked the other weekend was a banger, so should be fine. But yeah, bro, I'll get started. I'm gonna ask very open-ended questions because uh this whole thing with AI is moving very fast and it's getting pretty crazy.
Hmm.
Where do you think we're gonna be in 3 years? If we're like just looking back on, I remember the first time I used ChatGPT, and I was actually a teacher, like a substitute teacher, and I was I used ChatGPT to like, I don't know, like I asked it for I want to make this assignment for the students, but I don't have any ideas, and it just like gave me
Yeah.
everything. And I'm like thinking back to that to where we are now, and now you have agents, transacting. You have agents, like you have agents finding hacks, the cloud mythos stuff. Like, what's your just general thoughts on AI, where it started, where it's going last year,
Yeah.
last 2 3 years?
Yeah. I mean, look, this is it's a fascinating piece of technology, if you want to call it that, right? But it's majorly transformative of what's about to happen. I mean, if you think of it that way, like every major economic leap kind of follows the same pattern, right? And this is kind of another one of those. Humans are offloading a type of work to machines and redirect our attention to higher value things, basically, right? Think of it that way. We kind of offloaded labor to engines, then calculations to computers, and where we are now is like communications to networks. Um, but the interesting thing that's happening right now, in my opinion, is that we're offloading judgment. And an AI agent doesn't just process information; it decides and executes on your behalf, which is the crazy thing, right? And without you actually needing to be present. So the human attention has always been the bottleneck when it comes to commerce, when it comes to business. Um, the agentic economy kind of removes that bottleneck entirely. So if you ask me where we're going to be in like 3 years' time, I really can't really give you an answer because it can go from one extreme, we're all dead, all the way to the other side where it's just incredibly efficient. I mean, look at what happened over the course of the last, just the past year. So we had like the numbers basically showing that in itself, like that there is a very, very gravitational shift happening. Um, I mean, agents have settled over, I think it's over 170 million on-chain transactions in the past year. Now, in the grand scheme of things, that might not sound amazing, but if you then actually go into the use cases of it, um, there are several, ecosystems where you see something happening. You look at virtuals; they have launched, I think it's over 17,000 agents. You've got Solana's, Eliza OS. That kind of commands over 70%, I think, of the X402 volume that is in existence. And Ethereum's doing their bit. But the problem that nobody has solved, which is where I kind of would like to bring it back, no pun intended, to Concordium, is the is a pretty deep issue that the agents itself are extremely powerful, but in an actual way they are complete and utter strangers. They're ghosts. So you have to think of it that way. Like if a human today is entering, or a business is entering into a contract, there is centuries of legal infrastructure that stand behind that specific moment when a signature is being put on a piece of paper. A name, a jurisdiction, liability. But when an agent acts, none of that exists by default currently. Well, now it does because of Concordium, but the industry has a standard for what agents can do on chain. It has unfortunately no standard for who stands behind them as such, right? So, and that gap is creating several problems which Concordium is filling, from identity to accountability, the compliance piece, trust, etc.
I want to hear
It's quite,
more in depth on how that works, but let's save it for a
yeah,
bit later because I like as you were
sure.
talking, I had a question pop up in my mind, which is like we talk about the agents, but from you, like where you're sitting, you're very involved in this stuff. Like, what are most of these agents doing? Like, is it like what's the overwhelming use case that people are spinning up agents for?
Well, I mean,
And I'm not
you can
talking
look
like
at,
just about crypto, like
no, no,
like
no, of course, yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I can tell you from stuff that we do internally, right? Because we're not only just, we don't just talk the talk, we basically walk the walk here. Um, we reduced the capital the headcount in our company here by quite a significant margin, and actually made it more efficient already. Those agents can do a work that, if I think of like the strategy department, like how do you position yourself, like where do you position yourself? There is in normal world, you would need an armada of 15 analysts that work day and night, and you have to ship them pizzas while they're half in delirium in order to kind of make sure that they get the output that one agent can do over the course of a half an hour. Now, where do I see kind of real world examples? And the same applies to the commercial stream, the same applies to the marketing stream, on the tech side. Like, the level of efficiency is mind blowing. But if you actually think of the fact of how you monetize it, right? Right now, agents are paying for API calls, for example, via the Coinbase X402 protocol. What has been, we basically just somebody built a cool use case on Moldbook. I don't know if you know Moldbook. It's basically like a social network for agents themselves. They built something called which is basically a tipping service. So for good comments that actually have and then kind of a give you insights that you haven't thought about before, you can actually receive money for it now. They actually built this on Concordium, so you need to kind of, because of the payments, like you need to have like some verification behind it. So if we kind of have to take it back to crypto as well. I mean, you have agents managing DeFi positions. I know friends of mine that run companies that are negotiating SaaS contracts. So you've got agents that are negotiating SaaS contracts on behalf of companies. The thing is, this is not theoretical anymore. This is very, very real. What is
how has that worked in the past though? Like if an agent, I don't know, does something malicious or shady or messes up without
well? That's exactly,
the accountability,
yeah.
like how's that
Well,
been
there you
before
go.
Concordium?
Well,
Is it the Wild
it
West?
isn't. It isn't. That's the whole issue. So the way that I like to think about it is that, you know the last thing you need in this industry is more intelligence. You need accountability. Like, intelligence is enough about, right? So those agents are more intelligent than anything that you can possibly fathom. You and me, like no human can. Um, but what is missing is the accountability and the trust layer. Let's make it simple, right? If you interact, if you send your agent that has been created to do X, Y, Z, and starts to interact with somebody in order to fulfill that task, how can you make sure that he's speaking to an agent that is actually being authorized on the other side to deal with what the other agent is looking for? It's like, it's very simple. To your question directly, nobody can right now. Well, up until now, Concordium can. It's just like people don't know about it yet, but they will do very, very soon.
Yeah, and that's crazy because I remember even before AI, just when we had like the self-driving cars, that was like a huge question. And I thought about that a lot. Like, okay, like what if the self-driving car gets into an accident? Like, who's responsible? Like, it's like it's not a like black and white answer. It's kind of tricky. And I think with AI now, like you're tackling a huge problem. Like I'm not gonna lie, before even coming across Concordium and hearing about you, I never thought of this, but it makes so much sense.
It does, doesn't it?
It
The
does,
only
yeah.
thing is that it was the only thing that what people need to wrap their head around, and this is, and like if I talk about the crypto crowd specifically, like I might sound a bit controversial there. I don't give too much of a damn about crypto itself, right? For me, it's an application that has enormous potential. But what we have seen over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, and what the actual and this cypherpunk lives in me as well. By the way, this is not something that I'm averse to in any shape or form. Is that you kind of want to go against, like, go with the, complete decentralization, complete anonymity. You can do what you want. Let's build the system. However, the industry as a whole, and right now the markets are in a little bit of a distress, which is, this is the third time I'm experiencing this since I'm in this industry. Um, Everybody has been hailing the shit out of, oh my God, BlackRock is doing ETF. Yes, Genius Act. Yes, regulation here. Every single infrastructure provider, every single provider went down the route of like, we're regulated, we're regulated. Well, the main thing is that if you have regulation, the core idea of what crypto is doesn't really fit into this because of its pure anonymous nature, right? So at the same time, those people that are then very, very loud and say like, I want privacy, 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 complete, no, well, anonymity, because anonymity and privacy are two different things, gravely different. They are the same ones that have held a newspaper and sent a selfie to the exchanges in order to onboard themselves, right? So, so you kind of do that KYC by default anyway. The only thing that Concordium stands for, if we kind of take away like the agentic side specifically for a second, is I would like to do it in a way that I only have to do it once, right? So right now, whatever digital interaction I have, and I'm sure the listeners will agree to this, whatever service I'm using in a digital world, right now, because of the regs, I need to go through some level of bullshit KYC on the premise of making sure that I sent them a copy of my passport or my driver's license just to kind of show that I'm over 18, for example. Why would they need to know exactly when I was born? Why would they need to know my eye color? Why would they need to know where I live? Right? If I need to prove to them that I'm over 18, I can do this, right? On Concordium, you can. The idea is you verify once, and you basically onboard once, and you verify forevermore in a privacy preserved way. The same approach we're taking with the agentic economy. We were built for this moment, basically. In many ways, Concordium was like 5 years too early, right? But interestingly, I can tell you that this project's still around, while left and right millions are dying. And there is a reason for it. It's just you need to get people in order to kind of start digging deeper. And the beautiful thing about this is everybody now has access to Claude or Grok or Perplexity or ChatGPT. Go in there and spend 15 minutes in order to prompt it and ask, like, who are the projects that are actually on the identity side doing something? Oh, why would Concordium win? Why would XYZ win? And also ask the question of like that in many ways in the world that we operate in, there is a natural instinct to bolt identity verification into existing infrastructure as a feature.
Yeah,
That's not
I hear
applicable
you
here.
when you said that crypto's like you see it more as a tool and you have the cypherpunk. I relate to that because I remember when I got into crypto, it was like 7 years ago, and everything was just way different. Like none of the shit people talk about on CT existed back then. Like it was more about, I don't know. It was more like a movement than anything. So I don't know if
Absolutely was.
people
And I
know
also
the.
subscribe to it.
Sorry, repeat that.
Yeah, it was, and it to a certain extent still is, but it just morphed. It developed into something that is a little bit different now,
Yeah, it's
which
become this
also
whole
means,
lifestyle meme coin. Like I, I don't know. Like
oh no, please don't get me started on
yeah,
that
no,
shit.
no, no. I'm not going there because I don't like that shit either. I'm not gonna lie. But no, always like when I've been in crypto, and this might sound crazy, but for me, the natural. I come from like a gaming background, so I don't know
Hmm.
if you've heard the story, Boris, of like Vitalik, how he started on Ethereum. But it's basically he was playing World of Warcraft, and then
Yeah,
like he grinded for this spell or this item, I can't remember, and they nerfed it. and there's a quote of him saying, "I cried myself to sleep that night." because I realized the horrors of centralized entities, like the havoc they can break. So that's kind of how we got started. Oh, we need like a decentralized solution, and built Ethereum,
Yeah.
which is crazy. But yeah, I was gonna say, so like gaming has always been like a natural use case for me for crypto, and then private money I think is also, but like nothing else really stuck to me until AI came, because now we have agents capable of transacting, and like what are they gonna use? Like it has to be crypto, right? It's the most natural money for an agent, most
Well,
natural
yeah.
currency.
I mean, it definitely those two things are quite linked because, like, if you live in a completely digital world, why wouldn't you use digital money? But then again, we're kind of using a derivative of it. You may have a use case specifically for Bitcoin, but then again, but that's why you have Lightning and things like this in order to kind of handle the throughput. But what I'm trying to say is, ultimately what is going to be used for payments is going to be something in the form of a stablecoin, of course, right? In its digital form. It's just tethered to whatever we have in the financial system that you can back it out with in order to generate a yield.
Yeah, I'm
It shouldn't
seeing
be just cash, but yeah.
my friend Ole there in the listeners is clenching his hands right now, hearing that he can't pay with his meme coins, because I know he's big into
I'm
meme
sure he will be.
coins.
I'm sure he will be for certain things. But if you want to go broadband and you think of you living in a flat and you've got and your agent is in charge of like your monthly bills, I'm pretty sure that Sky or Thames Water or whatever water supply you have is going to necessarily accept pudgy penguins. It's going to be too volatile to accept. But
I
will
wanna
they
ask you
accept
though,
something in the form of a stablecoin? I would say yes.
can you dumb it down for me, Boris? Because like I'm not gonna like LARP. I understand Concordium, I understand everything I'm reading, but like what's the flow? Let's say I have an agent.
Mhm.
I wanna get on the agent registry. Like how does that look like? Like when people work with you, like what's the flow?
Well, I mean, it depends. It depends where you start, right? You have agent platforms that make it easier for you in order to create the agent card. The agent card is basically, what is this agent? What's the raison d'être? Like, why does he exist? Right? There is a standard that initially was kind of brought up by Google, and that metadata you basically bring into the Concordium ecosystem. Now, the important part here is you don't have to do it natively on Concordium. You don't. You can have an agent that is set up on Ethereum, or will I give a damn, or on Solana, on Fetch. Like those agent verses, we cater for. Now, if you are telling him, let's go through an example, right? Not that far fetched, actually. Um, you basically rock up and you say, I'm ordering a pizza, so I've got my ordering agent, right? Which you can interact via the MCP. You can go to your WhatsApp, so hook the model up, and you can basically talk to it and say like, "Hey, I'm on my way home," or you just whisper to it and you go like, "I'm on my way home, would like to order a pizza." And the agent knows, hey, well, it's Thursday or it's Friday. You normally have a beer with that, right? So there are two layers here. The first one is I give authority to that agent in order to pay for a service, to pay for goods and services, right? So he's handling my money. I want to make sure that if the guy places the order, he places it actually with Deliveroo and not somebody that just looks like Deliveroo, puts the URL in that is getting verified, which is how ERC 8004 works, right? But at the end of the day, it's Jamal in Bangladesh, right? And that's the guy who I sent the money to. That's level number one. The second layer is if I'm ordering alcohol, I need to prove that I'm over 18. So I need to be able to give that attribute to my agent in order to prove that capability in a full privacy preserving way. Tether doesn't, Deliveroo doesn't need to know that what exactly my birth date is and who I am, right? At the end of the day, it
Yeah,
just needs to
they just need
show
to. Yeah, it's just that you're over 18. That's
they
the
just need
only.
they just need to verify.
Yeah.
Now that when you rock up to the agent registry, you just basically give the ability to an agent that has been set up anywhere to allow him to have an accountable layer in the form of a human or a business, because on Concordium you can do both. You can do it as a human, as an individual, or you can also onboard as a business. And you basically anchor that key that you have on Concordium with your ID, plus, for example, that key access that the agent has on Ethereum, for all I care, right, into that registry, which proves that you have access to both, but it's backed by a human ID in a privacy preserving way. That's it. No other blockchain can do this. It's actually quite simple.
It
So you
makes
go
complete
through a couple of
sense.
steps. So you basically go through a couple of steps. Just rock up to concordium.com. I think it's like pretty much on the top right now, and you basically click on that blue button, and it takes you to the registry. It's also very nicely explained. You've got like two views: the simple view for like the normies of this world, and then there is one, the technical view for the developers. And the process is basically 2 clicks. You rock up, you sign with, I don't know, your MetaMask wallet. You basically sign a transaction in so you can prove that you have the key. Is attached to the agent. At the same time, it happens from the Concordium side. You have an agent that is now verified with a real world ID in the background.
It,
It's
ma-
very simple.
it
It's
makes so
company.
much sense when I talk to you and you explain, because you can explain it real well. But I think for me and for a lot of people, like, it's when we're reading and it, like, you see some big words and you're like, I don't know if I understand this. This is too much. But bro, thanks for the for that. Like, you really broke it down and made, like, I wrap my head around what you're saying now.
I mean, buddy, it is a lot. The only difference is, right, and I don't know how better to explain it than this shit is happening at speed, right? I'm not saying that come November time, it will be very, very straightforward for everybody on the planet to have an agent operating for them. I'm not saying that. In like 12 to 18 months, yes, it's going to be as simple as you getting used to clicking the 2 buttons on the side of your phone in order to Apple Pay, right? Um, which is also one of the reasons why crypto, in many ways, in my opinion, has failed. Because in terms of the tooling, in terms of the access, it was too complicated. Every single time that you rocked up to a dinner with friends or whatever, and they ask like, "Hey, what do you do?" And it's like, "Yeah, well, I'm in crypto." And it's like, "Oh my god, so how does this work?" Everybody tries to understand it. I think I've said this in the past, like specifically last year a lot. I was like, everybody is trying to understand the blockchain. You shouldn't understand the blockchain. You should use it, which is where the industry has failed as a whole. The industry has failed because we didn't build tooling that abstracted away the complexity of what people wanted to understand what a mnemonic seed phrase is. Why do I need to write down those 24 words and put them in a safe place and like all this shit, right? And somebody told me if I lose those words and if I lose my device, I then lost all my money. It's like, well, that's not cool, is it? So shit like this basically completely prohibited proper adoption. Now, this here is different because the world that we live in right now, I am not a developer, right? I'm not an engineer. But what I am able to build using those models right now is as good as a guy that studied engineering for like 3-4 years. I can speak to the model in plain English, and it builds me an app. Codes me up XYZ, can code me up a game, can code me up that. The same principle will apply with whatever you want to use it for. However, the compliance angle is not going to go away. So what will happen in this stint when we talk about AI and the crossroads with crypto is that you will suddenly find yourself actually might not even feeling it, that you are having that you're interacting with agents on a business level, right? Which you kind of do already. Like, look how the world has changed over the course of the last 5-6 years specifically. You had good old call centers, etc. Tell me these days where on a website where you have a problem, you actually find a phone number. You don't. You basically speak to a bot. This is no different, right? It's just like taking it about 15 levels further. And it is happening, and it is happening fast. It's just like people need to wake the fuck up because it also presents an amazing opportunity. It's incredible.
Yeah, no, it's actually crazy. And even me, like, I'm not a extremely smart guy or anything, but even me with my limited knowledge, I have agents. I have a trading agent. I have a few agents that I kind of just use for my personal. And I'm just thinking back to like the first time I used an LLM to where it is now, and I can't imagine like the coming years how everything's
It's
gonna look.
exponential.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah, it
exponential.
it really is. And I think I liked what you said with how we failed in crypto. Like ironically, it seems like now when like all the people have left, now they're kind of like starting to optimize for ease of use. But it's like I don't know. We should have done this years ago.
Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. I agree.
So how do you work with ecosystems like EVM ecosystem, Solana directly? How can you just walk me through kind of how do you work with I don't know what do you call it, partners? How do you
No,
refer to
no,
them?
like it call it like agentic interoperability. Like that's basically what it is. We've built this, like you haven't seen, like if Solana is listening in here, yeah, happy for you to drop a post on X and say like, thank you very much, Concordium, for building the accountability and trust layer. Will maybe come sooner or later. But what it ultimately comes down to is we are still focused on the builders itself. The only matter of the fact is that a lot of the stuff that is currently happening and is happening in specific ecosystems. So the way that we just positioned ourselves from like the tooling that we provide is that you can be in that ecosystem, you can continue to do things in that ecosystem, but if you need that accountability and trust layer, you can come to Concordium. That's it. Apart from all the stuff that we do ourselves. So there are two streams to this.
That's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I remember uh, years ago when there was this whole PvP, like, oh, you're this chain maxi, and this chain says something, and then like people were just, I don't know. But I feel like now crypto's kind of matured, and everything has to be cross-chain compatible.
Well, yeah, yes and no. I mean, look, the matter of the, I mean, this is where we go into like the crypto narrative again, or like the crypto world. I actually would argue the complete opposite. Um, those ecosystems are becoming extremely, how should I say, protective over what they currently have going on in their ecosystem, right? And the matter of the fact is, if you're an ETH maxi, you're an ETH maxi. If you're a Sol maxi, you're a Sol maxi. If you're part of the XRP army, even though I don't know what the latest thing is that they have actually built of amazement, you are continuing to trade that stuff, which is fine, right? But there is no massive cross ecosystem population interaction that is happening in many ways. And if you're not EVM, that kind of makes it even worse. I mean, we're not EVM, not planning to do. Like, I'm not going to be. I'm happy to be a little bit controversial. I don't like Solidity. I'm not a fan of that part of the ecosystem massively. Um, and you kind of hear the voices out of all those ecosystems themselves, right? I mean, just look what Vitalik brought out in the last couple of days. You maybe have seen Charles Hoskinson talk about Cardano the last couple of weeks.
Oh yeah, I was
People
watching
are
that.
feeling the pressure, right? Because they actually, it was cool to have built something like this for the cycle that we were in when it was all DeFi and let's go and like, let's trade some pixel monkeys and apes and punks and I don't know what. Like that's for that it was perfect. But now the same people have also been hopping around on Capitol Hill in Washington and been trying to get regulation left, right, and center. But what they failed to do is try to understand that if that is coming, you need to have a certain set of tools and features which they currently do not possess. And those are the compliance rails, the trust rails, the accountability rails, because at the core of what they are from their early beginnings is not what is required going forward, which is where we step in and want to help, right? And provide that layer for an entire ecosystem, whoever wants to have it. I mean, look, we basically launched. I don't actually know. Let me quickly have a look. We launched the Agent Registry last week, Friday, I think. We already have 516 agents that are registered.
And can
Right?
that be anyone? Like if I have an agent, can
Anyone,
I go and I
anyone,
can go register it
anyone.
even as an
Of course,
individual?
anyone. Yeah.
Oh,
You
okay.
don't need to be, I mean, right now, what we have is like that you can come along with your Solana, Ethereum, and fetch keys. The same also applies for Web2 based agents. So they don't need to be Web3 based agents. So like think of enterprises that are building their own standards. So you can basically rock up here. You don't need to be crypto based in order to attest. So think of it from an enterprise perspective, right? Because I'm going to take this a step further now, right? Because like the registry is pretty simple and straightforward. Just go to concordium.com, read it up. It's, and I hope I explained it earlier. But ultimately, where you go as a next leg is, well, there are two. On the one side, the auditability, right? Auditability is absolutely where the blockchain makes enormous sense and is absolutely crucial. So you are an enterprise, right, or a company. Let's just call it that. You've got 100 employees, and because you are being progressive and you kind of figured out, holy shit, there is actually some efficiency to be done here, to be gained. All you 100 people now each have between 50 to 100 agents doing whatever they do, right? Instead of having an armada of people like humans. So, but you run the business. You're the CEO, you're a director, you're the board. You are regulated, right? In some shape or form. Think of healthcare, think of financial services. You need to make sure that in case that something goes wrong, because something will go wrong somehow, that you figure out of where it went wrong and why. Right now, there is no such thing. So what Concordium has is that you, every single time one of the employees is changing a prompt or there is a payment involved or whatever else, you basically drop an anchor on the Concordium chain, right? You basically transact with the Concordium chain, which is an immutable ledger, where you have a full audit trail given your armada of agents at any given point in time. So should a regulator rock up at your doors, start ringing the bell and go like, show me what happened on the 16th of May, 2026, you can rock up to the chain, take a download and basically rock up on a piece of paper and say like, okay, on that day, this agent has done this and this and this at that time. He was prompted by employee 16, and he has changed the prompt the night before and basically chucked it into production at 9:15 in the morning. Right now, that does not exist anywhere apart from Concordium.
I love that. I actually had a case where I had an agent bidding like on trading cards,
Yeah,
and it actually lost
yeah,
money. So like I don't know what
there you
happened.
go.
Like it messed up, and
There you go.
I was like, where the hell's my USDC? And then yeah, it was just gone. Is there anything like insurance for agents? Because like stuff like that will happen. Like they're not perfect all the time.
1000%, 1000%. But this is all the stuff that is, which is why if you are now in the position to actually sit down and go like, okay, I'm doing XYZ shit as boring job. Okay, sit down on the weekend instead of going to the pub and have a pint. Sit down and try to figure out, okay, so this is how that works. This is how that works. So what is happening right now, the same as what the idea was with crypto, and still is, by the way. You build a completely different set of services and businesses that you can build around an agentic economy, which is far more streamlined, actually fairer as well. Because I always have this question of like who the fuck is Concordium? I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, it's a fair question. We're number 300 out of 15 million projects that are in existence, but we're not top 10. But for an agentic economy, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is there is an agent that has been programmed or has been created into its existence to perform a task. And if you give him the tools and capabilities to perform that task on the highest level, you being chosen based on merit, not based on you sponsoring the biggest events out there or have your name on a football arena or sponsoring a football team. It ultimately comes down to, I need to do X, Y, Z. I need to safeguard the money of my human owner. I need to make sure that I can only spend that much. I need to be able to access, jurisdiction or age-restricted services and content in order to perform my task. Those things right now, the ones that I mentioned here, because we currently just talk about the identity piece, we also have a thing called PLTs, protocol level tokens, and we have a thing called protocol level locks, where we take away everything from the smart contract layer, because that's how the industry has been built, and bring it back to the protocol. It's actually quite simple if you think about it. Like before Concordium, I'm the co-founder of one of the biggest custodians in the world called Copper. So I know a thing or two about custody. And the fact that smart contracts are acting in a custodial fashion is suicidal. It's really stupid. So every single
Oh
time
yeah,
that you open the news,
I actually put out a
every
post
single
about
exactly.
exactly that like a month ago. So it was since Cloud Mythos, that like since the
Well, that's the next
pre-release,
thing. Exactly.
yeah, $500 million just
Well,
gone.
there you go.
Yeah.
That is not happening if you issue on Concordium. So anybody that's listening in here right now, if you want to issue something that doesn't involve a smart contract in terms of risk, the time value of money, honeypot risk, like the whole thing, you just basically issue natively on the L1. This is not like an ERC type situation. Like it's not a smart contract standard. This is protocol level issuance, which allows you to build all sorts of cool things, right? Actually, also create a new world of DeFi, which you will hear about over the course of the next couple of months. But yeah,
I think people
it is
also
exciting.
don't like. I've tweeted about this a bit, but I kind of don't like it because it's my autistic side and people don't really understand what I'm saying. So and then that just doesn't do well. But I was a very basic level smart contract auditor a few years ago. Like I wasn't doing anything crazy, but I could handle the basic stuff. And the thing with smart contracts is like like there's it's not a symmetric. So like if you're a defender, you have to defend every single
Hmm.
possible outcome. Like the attacker only needs one in, whereas the defender needs to
Hmm.
cover every single gate. And it's just, I think a lot of these contracts that are on chain handling a lot of funds, it's just a matter of time, because there are vulnerabilities in like 90
I couldn't.
plus percent.
So don't just read into identity on Concordium. Also read into about protocol level issuance, because that will blow your mind in terms of like security.
Can I read up on this?
We
Because I like
Yeah,
not
yeah,
even
yeah,
for
yeah, yeah.
listeners, for myself, I want to read about the.
Yeah. I mean, you can just go to documentation.concordium.com. I think it's documentation.com. My God, I've got like I didn't sleep much. I was traveling last night, but you find everything on the homepage. Just go to concordium.com and you'll find everything there. There is a whole thing about PLTs and PLLs. So PLLs is the locking mechanism. So if you kind of round it up with the agentic side as well. So if you get an agent access to your money in the form of like he has access to the private key to your wallet, right? And there is money sitting in there. The locking mechanism allow you in order to commit funds to whatever action is required, but the smart contract acts what the smart contract should be doing. I'm an absolute fan of a smart contract if it does what it's supposed to do, which is enforce conditionality. It should not take funds and hold them for a prolonged period of time and then release them. But the way that the industry was built, because there were only two ways of doing a payment, right? Either you need to trust me that I'm clicking the button or sign a transaction at a specific point in time, or you and me agree to hook it up into a smart contract, deploy, I don't know, $1,000, and every single day you can draw down $100. So after 10 days, you have your entire money, depending on what the service is, right? But in those 10 days, the money sits there vulnerable. More importantly, if you now add a yield-bearing instrument, like a yield-bearing stablecoin, which is another thing that was completely missing, which is why you don't see any adoption of yield-bearing stablecoins, is because there was no use case for them. Right? That's the fucked up thing, right? Which is why you still have Tether and Circle kind of ruling the world. Uh, um, so, long story short, the smart contract does what it's supposed to, which is red light, green light, but it doesn't take custody of the funds. And when it comes to issuance, you can basically issue into it geofencing. You can issue, I can issue a coin just for shits and giggles and say it can only go to people that are, brown haired, the name starting with P, and they need to be over 1 meter 50 tall. So if the money is now being sent from left to right, the transaction either goes through or it doesn't.
Yeah,
You see what I
yeah,
mean?
I see.
It's
I see. I'm.
programmable
I'm
money on the next level,
I,
not in a smart contract, on the protocol level.
do you know? Are people using agents for like malicious things?
Fuck
This
yeah.
and I'm just trying to think like in legal terms. Let's say I had an agent do some shady stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Is that tied to
Mm-hmm.
me? Like can people say, "Oh, it was the agent"?
What do you mean?
So
Like you just basically set up an agent on, I don't know, on Solana, and the thing rocks up and starts doing malicious stuff.
no, no, no. I mean, it would have to be instructed to do it, right? But like. I think you can like
Yeah, of course it will.
obfuscate your like. I'm just thinking.
Yeah, but that's exactly what we're talking about, buddy.
Yeah,
That's exactly what we're talking
yeah. I'm
about.
thinking
If
like a
it's
bandit
not
right now.
verified on Concordium, if you're not verified on Concordium, there is no legal human process behind it. Now, there are use cases where you don't need that accountability. But for you, even though you don't need it, whatever your agent interacts with, you kind of want to make sure that somebody is eligible on the other side. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's kind of it's kind of a circle problem by default,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you don't want it to interact with something that is possibly malicious and doesn't have a accountable counterpart behind it, and vice versa,
Mm.
right? So that layer needs to exist.
Yeah,
Which, and as it stands right now, we're the only ones in the world, at least on the blockchain level, that can give you that.
that's very interesting. I think so. How do we get more people to actually like verify their age? Like, do you
Yeah.
have a like master plan on how you're like strategizing to
Oh
go
yeah.
about it?
Yeah. 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 I mean, there is so much stuff coming out over the course of the over the course of the next several months, that it actually kind of blows my mind, where we can start actually to be a little bit picky, to be honest.
Yeah, I know in the other
Which
space,
is,
just before you answer, I remember you saying like there's some things you can reveal and some things you can't. So
yeah, there are. I would have hoped that one of those things is here. But we're only going to talk about it once specific security audits are done. Because like, you have no idea, having run a custodian, and having to deal with Lazarus on a daily basis, like you should have seen on Copper, the level of security that, I mean, security for me is paramount. Like, if you don't solve for security, you might as well not fucking start. It's as simple as. So there are a couple of things, and sometimes that security point is not just on us. Again, go onto our socials, go onto our homepage, and basically read through, because we just released our CertiK audit. We did a gray box audit, which hardly any other chain has ever done, and we passed it with flying colors, because it was absolutely crucial to me that, with all the enterprises, with all the issuers, with all the use cases that we're basically talking to, that I can look them in the eye and say, look, if I tell you protocol level issuance is secure, it is, right? If and so on, like our smart contract standards when it comes to, but the smart contract standards are one thing if they don't hold any funds, so there is nothing to gain there. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. I mean, there are a couple of use cases that went live, like I said. The tipping agent, which can be done in different ecosystems. It started on Moldbook, which is quite cool. Yeah, there is a plethora to come. It was just like, I can't remember when we last spoke. I mean, there's a lot of stuff in between that we basically announced, but the big stuff is coming in the coming weeks.
that's very interesting. Actually, I have a bandit trading agent for the virtuals like competition. I'm gonna see if I can register it. I'll probably
Yeah,
DM you
rock up. Yeah,
when it's done.
yeah, that would be
Yeah,
cool.
but okay, cool. Uh, are you cool to go a few minutes over time? I have like we could cut,
Yeah,
we
of
could
course.
didn't, but I want to ask you this question. Like the I know I asked like in the beginning, like where do you see AI like 2 3 years? I don't mean AI as an industry now. I'm more talking when I ask this question like people using it because my normal friends, they don't know what an agent is. Like they know ChatGPT, they know
Hmm.
LLMs. Do you think do you
Hmm.
think there's gonna be like a divide where more tech savvy people use agents and normies just use the LLMs? Or do you think it's gonna reach a point where like everyone's using agents without knowing?
I think it's a very good question, because like I'm thinking about it the same way. When I look at all those different companies rock up, like Hermes, and OpenClaw was a very, very good example, right? Where you have it, but it's still very complicated in order to set it up. There will be a layer, like an abstraction layer, that makes it very easy, where you can speak in plain English with the thing, and it basically takes it from an existing stack and kind of builds you your agent, and just say like, here it is, right? um, I think we will reach a point pretty soon. I'd say in the next like 6 to 9 months, where you basically can download agents for a specific service that you then modify in plain English, just like you download an app. from an app store. So I don't think we are that far away. And the matter of the fact is that once we kind of reach that point of actual, like an ecosystem that currently is extremely small, but like, man, I wish I could kind of let you in on all the conversations that I have with some of the biggest players in crypto right now that we're talking with, to kind of solve for their agentic problems because of the regulatory and the compliance and the accountability and the auditability side. I don't think we're that far away. And I don't think that it needs to be something that people have to, learn. It will be abstracted in a way that you actually don't really feel that you need to know anything specific, except that you kind of prompted in plain English of what you wanted to do because somebody told you to, and you basically sit in a bar and or in a pub and you basically go like, hey, have you tried this new this new app? Just like it was like, okay, well, Revolut, I kind of understand Revolut, so it's a bank basically. I can have more currencies. Okay, well, I'll download the bloody thing. So it's going to be the same approach, I think, when it comes to adoption on the agentic side.
Oh, interesting. Anything else you wanna?
Which, by the way, is the opportunity, right? People can sit here right now, or anybody out there, and can basically go, clever business idea. Maybe I can build this.
Oh yeah,
Sounds good.
Actually, when you were talking about the learning like programming and engineering, I did that years ago before the whole AI thing. I was learning how to center a div in HTML, CSS, and like JavaScript, and then now it's like make me a website, computer, make no mistakes, and it's just all those years I
Exactly.
spent learning is like useless. So yeah.
I mean, we for example, to kind of give you that in terms of like efficiency, but like normally you kind of have those problems because you need to build a testing environment. The documentation needs to be correct, right? So we basically for last year, before we kind of, we didn't want to kind of commit too early because for us it was a natural progression. We have a vertical that's called just verified access, right? So you basically rock up and you can verify that you're over 18, for example. Think of gambling, gaming, etc., and you can basically verify that you're over 18 and you can enter. We basically rocked up already, late last year, and we basically gave it to. I don't actually recall which model it was. It was our CTO Peter. Within like 24 hours, I think in total it was like 32 hours. The model has built an entire Cloudflare worker plugin for verifying access with a test environment and full documentation. That would have taken like 7 or 8 developers about 6 weeks. Right?
That's crazy.
So what I'm trying to say is the models right now, which is where you kind of see. I mean, for me, one of the biggest news is what Fable 5 was like 3 days ago. That's just crazy. I think people underestimate of what the level, what this actually meant. But like that's a whole other podcast.
Wait, do you
whole other
wanna
space.
just quickly TLDR your thoughts on what it meant?
No, because it will create kind of I think it kind of creates a little bit of a panic, to be honest, because those things are so powerful. I think people underestimate, like if you haven't started playing with it in a proper way and not just use it as a proxy for Google, then you kind of don't understand of like how important it is to have said we're going to restrict access globally. Apart from like the powerhouses, this is more like geopolitical stuff between China and the US. But the fact of like how it first came out and they had to retract it because it was too dangerous, then of course they kind of softened it, but it was still too powerful. There is very little that has come out since, kind of tells you of like how exponential this growth can go. But also it kind of would mean, and there is, those are theories, that it's my theory, that you basically find yourself in a position where the state needs to figure out of how to control this. Which means that you kind of go down the road and say, like, those models are not making any money anyway right now. And if I start to restrict those like Anthropic or OpenAI or XAI, whatever it is, to the extent I basically am able to just rock up and say, like, okay, fuck the fact that you'd only make $1 billion a year and you've got a 1.5 trillion valuation. Here is $1 trillion. We buy 50% of that. So it's basically a step towards nationalization and state control, government control. And given that that has happened in the free world is a bit crazy to me.
Yeah, and that's what crypto was supposed to like stand up against.
Which it still can, just in a different way.
Yeah.
And for that you need a different set of tools and a different set of blockchains. And without a doubt, with all the research and being very deep in this topic, and also with a specific bias, which I'm always trying to. I always applaud others that are building cool shit, and I love when others build cool shit, because I'm the first one that wants to use it. I have to say that Concordium is pretty uniquely positioned here. So yeah, we'll see what time will bring.
Yeah, I urge everyone listening to go check Concordium out. You have the account there in the co-host seat. Drop them a follow. Boris, I don't like to do like a lot of AMA. Like I want you to have the vibe that we're two friends sitting in a bar when we do these spaces. And like now I just check the time, and like I'm having so much fun that we've gone over time. But if you have anything like else, like last thing you want to touch on or mention.
No, keep your eyes peeled. In order to kind of take this to the next level, specifically from a Concordium perspective, you need big stable coins. You need, and this is what I'm saying. Like I'm so excited to see of like what's coming down the road. If you are doing anything on that front, the fact is we are a blockchain. We want to get a community of developers around us that are driving this also forward, not just internally. We have very, very cool group of developers around us right now that is actually growing rather fast, faster than I actually anticipated, to be honest. To make it better, the core principles are the same, right? And this is what people need to, when they think of Concordium, need to understand. It's about privacy preserving identity. It's about protocol level issuance. And when it comes to the money flow, protocol level locking mechanisms, abstracting away of smart contracts. Smart contracts should still be there, but to enforce conditionality. It's really that simple. And on the agentic side, if you kind of take those three levels and plunge them into the agentic world, you actually see the insane power that Concordium can bring. I just tell people, please use it. Try it. Just try it out. No harm done.
Well, there you have it. Boris, always a pleasure talking to you. I feel like we haven't talked that many times, but like already, I feel like it's talking to a friend I've known for 10 years. So, and I love your insights. So, also before you go, I could DM you this, but I'm just gonna ask you while I have you here. I usually host with Burden, a friend, and Jux, two friends of mine, every weekday. I'd love if you came up like as a speaker, if we do an AI space with like some different people from different backgrounds in AI.
Chatting to the guys, you have all the contact details. I'm literally I am the CEO, but I'd like to consider myself as the janitor. So whatever is needed, clean up in aisle 3, I'm there.
I love it. All right, well, good talking to you, and guys listening in. I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and feel free to check out Concordium. Yeah, we'll leave it there, Boris, and I'll talk to you next time.
Thank you, buddy.
Take care.